Overwatch goes back to its roots, and Horizon reinvents the whole franchise. This week, the multiplayer news are everything but smooth sailing. Except for Sea of Remnants, of course. When Horizon Forbidden West was released, people complained it wasn't like Zero Dawn. Steel Frontiers was teased and called Mobile Slop, and Light of Motiram was welcomed with open... just kidding, hit with a lawsuit by Sony and taken down. Of course, now Guerrilla Games is taking the Horizon universe into a new direction. And players are already complaining again. But since we are all way more civilized here, let's have a look at the facts first. Horizon Hunters Gathering is a co-op focused spin-off built around small team machine hunts instead of lone exploration. You team up as hunters in groups of 3 and take on large-scale machine encounters during missions. And no, you don't have to be exactly 3 players. There are AI companions as well. And matchmaking for the brave among us. Combat is very close to the single-player games, with similar weapons, weak points targeting, and reaction to machine behavior. But it's clearly designed around coordination in group play. You can pick different roles for each hunter, so you can mix and match, and choose your character more flexibly. Progression-wise, there's also a roguelike element letting you pick perks along the way and shape your character the way you want. 2 types of missions were shown. One that revolves around defending areas against escalating waves of machines, with a large boss at the end. The other sends teams into underground facilities with shifting layouts, puzzles, and risk versus reward decisions. Everything tied together looks like a solid formula for replayability. There is a shared social hub where players can group up, upgrade gear, or just hang out. You also get your own customizable campsite, serving as your little retreat. Crossplay and shared progression between PC and console are supported, and the story is supposed to be fully canon. However, the tall neck-o-fant in the room is obviously the art style. Visually, the game leans into a more stylized look. Machines and environments are brighter and more exaggerated than in the mainline games, which makes fights easier to read, but also sets a very different tone. One that isn't bad per definition, but it isn't what many players picture when talking about the Horizon franchise. On top of that, we would have wished for a character creator rather than pre-made hunters, especially since some of them really don't fit the universe well. At the core, a game is supposed to be fun. And we still think that this one could be fun in its own way, even though it has not the same atmosphere as the single-player games. A closed playtest starts later this month, where we can maybe put this statement to the test. But what's your take? Are you just happy to finally get more Horizon, or are you rather skeptical? Let us know, and please keep it civilized. We are counting on you. For the 10-year anniversary of the Overwatch franchise, Blizzard has rebranded the game again, which means Overwatch 2 is dead. Long live Overwatch! At this point, we had long forgotten why they made it into the 2 in the first place, when the original 2016 game seemed to be very popular at the time. And if you can't remember either, here's the quick recap. They wanted to turn the buy-to-play into a free-to-play model with pay-to-play heroes, battle passes and costume bundles, seasonal content, and a co-op story mode. Fast forward to today, the game director of Overwatch has said in an interview with Polygon that they see it as a forever game, which means that there will never come an Overwatch 3 that replaces this one. They want to regain player trust, that this is something lasting, and maybe that is actually a good step. We're still a bit confused, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how this story evolves. Aside from the naming thing, they have also prepared quite a bit of new content, like the Reign of Talon, a year-long interconnected story arc. Instead of traditional PvE missions, the story unfolds directly inside PvP seasons through cinematics, events, evolving maps, and, for the first time, player-driven outcomes. The newest season, restarting with 1, is called Conquest and launches February 10th. It's basically a faction war. You pick a side, Overwatch or Talon, and every match you play contributes to a 5-week global showdown. Whichever faction dominates unlocks exclusive cosmetics and determines how the story evolves. That actually sounds pretty cool if we don't end up with a typical Horde versus Alliance imbalance. Season 1 also launches with 5 new heroes at once. The very elegant tank Domina, the 2 new damage heroes Anran and Emre, as well as 2 new supports, Mizuki and Jetpack Cat, which has a skill that lets you catnap enemies and yoink them from the map like they're a teacup. On top of that, there's a crossover that I have to mention with Hello Kitty. If you were excited to jump into Starsand Island with friends, we've got some not-so-cute news today. And before we get to the details, I want to make clear that from the first trailers we saw, we wanted this game to succeed. The trailers look great, we both played the demo and quite liked it. The world is vibrant, cozy, and surprisingly deep. But once you look past the vibes, the communication around this game has been difficult. Early access was originally expected around February 1st, then quietly shifted to February 11th, which still isn't clearly reflected everywhere, including on Steam. And while this might sound small, it's part of a bigger pattern that left a lot of players confused. The biggest one for us is multiplayer. We are positive this game was originally announced with online co-op in trailers and on their Steam page. But according to their FAQ on Discord, it turns out multiplayer is not planned for early access. Instead, it will launch as a single player only, with online co-op coming later. Probably, eventually, maybe at full release. Which we don't know when that will be yet, as that part of Steam is empty. This fact also makes the confirmed anti-cheat system raise eyebrows. On Discord, the devs say it's needed for a fair multiplayer environment. But multiplayer won't be available for months? In a cozy, mostly offline live sim, that's understandably making people uneasy. On top of that, Kickstarter backers were supposed to receive early keys under NDA, and as of now, it's unclear whether everyone has gotten access. We really hope they do. Don't get us wrong, none of this makes Starsand Island a bad game. It can still totally be awesome, but it has left us and other players a bit confused. Anyways, we'll keep an eye on it still. We've been invited back into the second Aniimo closed beta, and this time with 2 accounts. So we finally experienced the multiplayer aspects firsthand, and well, it's complicated. There are good ideas here. For starters, Aniimos can be caught by everyone in the group. And unless you have greedy teammates that want to build a private stew, or malicious ones that just want to eradicate every Aniimo from Idle, this is great. The co-op specific dungeons are where it gets even better. These puzzle sections, where each player twines into a different Aniimo to solve elemental challenges, are genuinely fun and feel a bit like It Takes Two. Boss fights are also solid. Both players can try to catch the boss at the end and everyone gets rewards. Although, if one player is underleveled, they are kicked out of co-op when the fight starts, which feels unnecessary. Social systems exist like chat, emotes, and trading, with access gated behind friendship levels, which makes sense and is kinda cute. However, interactions are mostly confined to hubs, groups, or campfires. And those hubs struggle hard with performance, even with just a few players present. Outside of that, the world feels oddly empty. Astra, for example, the big city meant for player interaction, currently doesn't offer much beyond window shopping. The bigger issue is how thin co-op becomes outside of the previously mentioned activities. Most dungeons are single-player only, and even when co-op is supported, it's limited. That feels like a missed opportunity, as the game already supports teams of 4 Aniimos. So, designing dungeons with multiple elemental paths and scaling them to party size would solve a lot. But exploration is where co-op really falls apart. Chests require the host to stay within range. Teleporters and map progression only work in your own world. NPC dialogue isn't visible for joining players, and most puzzles only activate for the host. Meanwhile, Anipods, the catch devices, are shared on pickup, while basic resources like flowers are not. Even the homestead follows this pattern. Invited players can look around, but can't really help build. Overall, Aniimo has solid foundations, but its systems don't line up yet. We constantly had more fun playing solo, which really shouldn't happen. The game is still set to release this summer, and there is still time, so we stay optimistic and hope they use it to make multiplayer feel like a feature, not an afterthought. Not that long ago, we realized that FriendSlop had basically become its own genre. You know, those chaotic co-op games like Peak, designed to test friendships, patience, and sometimes your microphone's noise-cancelling capability. Well, allow us to introduce the next evolution, HorrorSlop, or Friend Horror, Horrible Friends, whatever you call it. Someone is screaming, and it might be you, or this mandrake. This is Devil of the Plague, an upcoming 1 to 4 player co-op psychological horror survival game. You gotta love those long genre names. Where you and your friends play members of a cult, tasked with purifying cursed locations, and hopefully not dooming each other in the process. The setup is inspired by ancient Sumerian mythology, a civilization that lived where today southern Iraq is, and is also called the Cradle of Humanity. In the game, an ancient demon named Asak has twisted reality and whispered madness into everyone's heads. This isn't jumpscare horror, it's what the devs call ritual horror. Fear comes from decisions. Light protects you, but also attracts enemies. Darkness hides you, but corrupts your mind. You messed up a ritual? Oh, congratulations! You just spawned something much worse for the whole team. If you go down, you're stuck in another realm, and your friends have to revive you by chanting, under pressure, while monsters actively try to stop them. Yeah, no stress, Greg, the floor's just cursed lava, I guess. Early Access launches April 20th with a free demo during Steam Next Fest this February. And for this week's free games, we have Hellcard, a cooperative roguelike deck builder where you descend into paper dungeons. It's playable solo with AI companions or in co-op for up to 3 players. And then we have something for the mouse-loving VR owners among you. Glassbreakers Champions of Moss is a VR-only real-time strategy battler set in the Moss universe where you command rodent champions in arena matches. But that's all for this week. If you're still here, yes, you, congratulations! You've unlocked the very rare functional attention span achievement. Feel free to reward yourself by liking the video and maybe subscribing if you don't want to miss our future shenanigans. We wish you tons of fun in co-op with your favorite people, and we'll see you again in the next one.